The business news then with Stephen. He's here on set with me, and we're going to start with Google's parent company. This is Alphabet, isn't it?
That's right. They reported their first set of results since that massive fine was imposed by the European Commission over its mobile operating system, Android. The €4 billion penalty made a huge dent in the company's profits, but stronger than expected advertising earnings helped investors to look past the fine. Shares in Alphabet rose by over 3% after hours on Wall Street. For the period from April to June, Alphabet reported profits of $3.2 billion. Without the EU fine, that would have been over $8 billion. Revenues continued to grow strongly over the quarter, up 26% on the same period last year. And since advertising is Google's bread and butter, it's worth noting that clicks on ads across its platforms, including the likes of YouTube, were up by almost 60% over this period. Now, earnings per click are down, but that growth in clicks is helping to reinsure investors.
Now, some good news for the French car maker PSA.
Opel, which is the brand the company bought from General Motors last year, has turned a profit in the first half of 2018, recorded a net income of €500 million from January to June, compared to losses of almost €180 million in the second half of 2017. Overall, PSA saw operating profits of €3 billion, with profits rising by 30% at its Peugeot and Citroën brands. The company is planning to make major cost savings at Opel, which also operates under the Vauxhall brand, which the company's CEO says is necessary for it to survive.
How's it going down on the market since, Steve?
PSA shares jumping by more than 10% at the open here in Europe. They were just under 12% gains a short time ago when I checked in on those shares. In fact, the whole automobile sector is trading up in Europe, being boosted by PSA. This is the picture on the European markets at the open. Gains across the board, as you can see. Pretty moderate, though, across London, Paris and Frankfurt. Over in Asia, Chinese markets got a boost from a promise by Beijing to bolster the economy. This as trade tensions with the United States continue. That comes after the central bank in China yesterday injected more than $70 billion into the country's banking system, all over fears of a slowdown there.
Talked about cars, let's talk about airlines next. Passengers flying with Ryanair are facing disruption this week, aren't they?
The low-cost Irish carrier has cancelled 600 flights on Wednesday and Thursday. This as cabin crew in Spain, Portugal, Belgium and Italy go on strike. 10,000 passengers are being affected by the action, but Ryanair says that 90% of them have been transferred onto other flights. Unions called the strike in a dispute over working conditions for staff. Meanwhile, Ryanair pilots based in Ireland are holding their third 24-hour strike today, 16 flights being cancelled as a result of that action.
Now let's turn to Lebanon next on the programme, where legalising cannabis is being considered as a way of boosting tax revenues.
Now, Lebanon has a long history of an illegal cannabis trade, but a report from the consultancy McKinsey has suggested that legalising it could help to boost the country's finances. The country's agriculture minister says they're considering loosening the rules around medical marijuana. Our correspondents in Lebanon sent us this report.
Bekaa Valley, home to Lebanon's illicit cannabis trade. Now the government is hoping to cash in by legalizing its use for medical reasons.
This new law will allow us to breathe. This plant lets us live. The cultivation of cannabis isn't such a big deal. Just give us our daily bread. But when it is legalized by the government, we can finally start to benefit economically.
Dating back to the Ottoman era, marijuana cultivation flourished during the Lebanese Civil War. Despite the risk of fines and jail time, many families rely on the crop.
In the Bekaa Valley, nearly 20,000 square meters are used for cannabis cultivation. In the Yamuna region, the area covers more than 500 to 600,000 square meters. Here we grow hashish and apples. We harvest hash every year, the apple trees once every 10 years.
According to consultancy firm McKinsey, regulating marijuana could bring as much as $500 million to the Treasury's coffers. With public debt at 150% of GDP, the extra tax revenue could help the country's economic crisis.
We are moving towards legalizing it for therapeutic purposes and instituting tougher penalties for using cannabis.
According to the UN, Lebanon is one of the top 5 cannabis exporters in the world, accounting for 5% of global production.
Now, finally from Stephen, thousands of employees of the sports brand Nike are actually going to get a pay rise, aren't they?
This comes after an internal review of pay structures at the company, which was actually sparked by claims of workplace misconduct earlier this year. There were a raft of executives that resigned over this as well. Now, the plan has 7,000 workers getting a raise. It's designed to correct inequality in salaries between staff doing the same job in different parts of the world. Nike says that both male and female employees will get raises as a result of this plan. The company says the changes are to support a culture where workers feel included and empowered.
Good idea, anyway. Thank you very much, Stephen. Stephen with Business on France.